Hello, everyone. It's 7 after 7, so we should get started. Welcome, everyone. So we welcome our new members. I'm David Chess. I'm sitting in for Ed Cinto, and want to just see if we can move things along. And maybe we could introduce our new members. If you could introduce yourselves. And
Hi, everybody. I'm Joe Kariski. I'm on the Conservation Commission presently. And I just found out today that I'm on
you were drafted. Another draftee, conscription. Great to have you. Thank you.
happy to be here.
So my name's Larry Haddad, and no government role so far in that, but I'm part of the Lordship Fathers Club. I'm a Cub Master with Act 74, and was referred, recommended by our council person who said, sure, I'll serve on the commission. So I hope I don't regret that.
Before we go on, maybe you should tell them how to use these things.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to talk, you press this button there, and that'll let you talk. But once you're done talking, turn it off, because too many are on, nobody else can talk. Okay.
But if you don't want to really have anyone understand what's going on, keep it on. That's a strategy. Anyways, so we want to open the meeting. First thing is approval of minutes from January 19th, which many of you don't have. And for all those who were here, any recommendations, any comments, any thoughts? Is there a motion to accept the minutes?
I'll make a motion to accept it.
Motion to second?
All in favor?
Aye.
See how easy the meeting?
So I have a question. Do we need to, for the organizational meeting, do we need to approve this as well?
Yeah, we had a public hearing and an organizational meeting.
Or,
Would like to.
Sure. So in your packet, there's also the organizational meeting description minutes. Any comments on those? Make a motion to accept?
Make a motion to accept.
second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks for keeping us on the straight and narrow.
Been doing this too long, so I don't.
So we're on our agenda, the old business is a 20-lot residential subdivision at Teakwood Drive. I don't know if there are any representatives here who, to speak for it. So I assume we're just going to table that for next meeting.
Did they take it off the table?
Probably, yes.
Take it off the
Probably
table,
should
discuss,
take-
and
Yeah,
then-
take it off the table first.
So make a motion to take it off the table?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any discussion on it?
Can we ask any questions?
Please?
Okay. Kelly, I think this was in your report. Hang on. Drowning in maps, but I think it was the second to last. Hang on. Okay. I think you pointed this out. So they keep going back and forth between open space, marsh, and inland wetlands corridor, inland wetlands, water course. Did they rectify that, or did you ask them about that? Any?
You mean specifically on just the nomenclature on the mapping?
Correct.
They rectified it for the majority, yeah. There's still some outstanding minor questions on designating the open space areas. And there's one area in particular that it looked like they were clear cutting, but still putting in a conservation easement. So I still had some questions on that. But that hasn't been answered yet.
Okay. Are we going to try to have a site visit?
We certainly can if you guys would like to. I can help coordinate that. I think that for this project, that we all should have a site visit.
Okay, sure, I'd love to have one. And also too, there was a, somewhere in the memo, okay, there were a couple of things. I forget who wrote it. I think from Mr. Bidlusky. He mentioned a possible 21st lot or an alternate. Or something there about a
I think that they had an alternate site plan that had another, they squoze another lot in because they're trying to show that this is the least impactful that they're proposing.
So where would the lot 21 go? Say?
I believe in one of the iterations of the site plans, there was a layout that showed the alternate. I'm not sure if
That's
it,
not what we're voting.
No, I understand that, but I'm just,
Yeah.
if he's mentioning it, I want to know where they're thinking of
of putting that. I don't know right now, but I will look through all the materials I have and I'll get back to you on that. Because I do know that they have submitted one. I just don't know if it was the last iteration or the one before that or the one before that. So I'll get back to you on that.
Okay, and then the other one was the wildlife habitat opportunities. So, a couple of things on that. Who wrote this one? The writer,
I think that's Bill Kenny, right?
Bill Kenny, mentioned avian species, but he didn't mention birds of prey. They weren't mentioned in it.
Okay. That may be that he didn't come across them during his survey, but that would be a question to ask him.
Okay.
I didn't write it, so,
Okay, I was just curious to get
Yeah.
if you got any feedback on that.
okay.
All right. And also, too, he mentions Remington Woods being across the street. And again, it is, because it's 422 acres. Stratford has like 70, the rest is Bridgeport. But again, that's still not resolved as far as development goes.
Correct.
So I'm just curious why he referenced that as, because he says Remington Woods to the south of the property provides habitat opportunities for many additional species which are well documented, but then he has the website saveremingtonwoods.org. I was wondering why he put that in.
I'm not sure. That's a good question for him as well. I will ask him.
Okay. Like I said, I'm just curious where he was coming with that, because again, they're still talking about either partially developing or fully developing the woods there. There's been no
Right.
solid plans yet for that.
Agreed. Going back to the site visit, do you want me to send out a doodle poll to everyone, or how do you guys want to handle that?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I'll send that out, and then we'll find a good date and time.
The weather isn't great.
Any other questions on this development? I didn't get to go through it, but with their plantings, is that broken down in one of these drawings? I mean,
For the restoration,
yeah, because
they
I think they added that later.
They added it,
70 trees, I think they proposed.
yeah, it's not on the most recent iteration, and they only provided the northern half of the parcel. They still haven't provided restoration for the southern half. But they have, like, I should recant that. They did provide it for that wetland area, that drainage, or the detention basin, but they didn't provide it for the residential development portion of the southern half.
So before they come before us, could we ask them for a more complete?
I've asked them twice, but I will ask again.
They knew that this was on the agenda today.
Yes, when I spoke with them last month to tell them that we didn't have a quorum, they said, all right, we'll see you next month. And,
It is,
yes, that's where we left off.
Site, I know in zoning, you can't have more than half of is it the same here?
Yeah, if we have a quorum, it needs to be noticed, so, which will be fine. We'll just, if we have a quorum, we'll just notice it as a meeting. Yep. Yes. Yeah, we haven't even accepted this application. Right. Unfortunately.
It's been percolating.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I've been asking them over and over, yeah. So Right. Typically, when applications are this deficient, I won't even bring them to the commission. I will wait, but because they've been trying for so long that I have been bringing this one before the commission, and it's a very large application as well, so.
So should we table this? Make a motion to table? All in favor? Up next on the, is the commercial building on Surf Avenue. Any representatives for the 4,198,000 square foot, not thousand, commercial building on Surf Avenue?
Good evening. My name is Manny Silva, civil engineer for Rose Teasel and Company, representing Stratton Industries, which is, like the roll call said, it's an existing industrial building on Surf Avenue. Did I say my address? I don't think I did. 35 Brentwood Avenue, Fairfield, Connecticut. So essentially, we have a 12,500 square foot existing industrial building on Surf Avenue. Kind of get you located. Here's Lordship Boulevard. The highway entrance is right here, so the site kind of backs up to I-95. As you come up here, here's the ramp, and then Surf Avenue goes underneath the highway here. So we want to do a Butler building, basically a metal frame building, as a warehouse on the back of the existing building. Stratton Industries is a company it's throughout Stratford. They like to stay in Stratford, and they'd like to expand their operation here at this site. So there's a pond here existing. It's kind of like standing water in there. That's a pond, basically. I think it's a leftover from some kind of work on 995 where it created depression there, and they were using this area kind of for staging and things, and it ended up being an area where it collected water. It then discharges to the state. There's an underground culvert that goes down Lordship Boulevard, and then discharges somewhere near Access Road into the Lewis Gut that way. So what we're asking for is this little addition here, and there's a gravel parking lot that we'd like to just reconfigure to get 26 spaces. Right now it's just gravel in this area, and it's not really organized. I'll go into the drainage real quick. So since we're adding some impervious area here to the back, we have a gallery system which will collect the roof runoff from the new addition into about 400 lineal feet of galleries underground. Let me just get Sorry, I just ran from Shelton from another public hearing, so. So for Stratton Industries, that's the other one. So we like to, with this system that we have here, we'll reduce the 2-year storm by 15% from the existing condition. The 10-year storm will be reduced by 7.4%. 25-year storm will be reduced by 11.4%. And then the 50-year storm will be reduced by 2%. We also provide and exceed the water quality volume that's required from the DEP. They would require about 3,000 cubic feet of storage. We are providing about 4,000 cubic feet of storage. So we are going to reduce the amount of volume. We're going to reduce the rate of runoff coming off the site is going to be reduced from the existing condition, and we're going to increase the water quality of that runoff that's coming off. As you can see here is that gallery system, and then we discharge that to a small infiltration swale that then has a kind of a plunge pool that has a level spreader that discharges into the wetland here to the south of the existing parking lot, and that kind of runs into that pond. Again, we're using 2x4 galleries because of the high groundwater condition.
Thank you.
We can't go with like a 4x4 So we want to stay above that groundwater so that the water infiltrates into that soil, filters it out, and then gets into the groundwater at that point. So we are above the groundwater table with our galleries. During construction, we have a soil erosion control plan. Basically, it's to keep any sediments and debris from going into the adjacent wetlands or properties during construction. We have an envelope around the property that's of silt fence to filter out any water that's trying to pass outside of the property that we have as a limit of disturbance here. We then have an anti-tracking pad out on Surf Avenue so that any vehicles that are coming in and out of the property, if they have any mud on the wheels, gets knocked off, and then that mud stays on that tracking pad and not into the street. Also, we put hay bales or silt sacks inside of any proposed stormwater drainage so that when water does discharge into that during construction into that catch basin, the water that might be turbid or have some mud in it will be filtered out in that silt sack. And then once construction is done and we have the site stabilized, we'll pull those silt sacks, and then those new catch basins will be clean and ready to operate as if they were new. Again, here's some details of the silt sack, how those are operating. Our anti-tracking pad for during construction, our silt fence barrier, and then we have also some reinforced silt fence for areas that have a little bit of a steeper slope or have a concern so that if a large rainstorm were to happen during construction, the silt fence doesn't fall over. It has like more of a structural element to it, so it stands up. Here's our narrative. Basically, the person responsible to monitor and to detail how to do the soil erosion controls during construction. And then we have our landscaping plan, which is our ornamental landscaping. Right now we have some trees and some base foundation plantings, and then some street trees around the gravel parking lot, kind of to give some shade to the existing parking lot. Right now there's nothing really there except for some grasses. And that's my presentation. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Yeah, I do it. Because that area is notorious for flooding under that viaduct area over there, is there any
Correct.
effect on down where Stratton is?
So the flooding happens like right in this area here.
Yeah, but
Just-
it can turn into a pond.
Right, so if anything, what we're doing is trying to not pave the site and leave it pervious for the most part. So we didn't ask to, we could have, they would have liked to pave the parking lot, but it's not advisable because of the flooding issues down here. If anything, we want to reduce the amount of water that's coming off our site, which is what we're trying to attain here, so that we don't make this flooding situation any worse. In fact, we think we can make it a little better with this development the way it is and just store some of that water underground in those galleries. But I think the issue with the flooding really comes down to poor drainage on Surf Avenue being very flat, and there's just a low-lying area underneath the underpass. Yeah.
How's the flooding been this year?
I can't say personally. I don't go out there every day, but you do see some ponding out there. It's not something that cars can't get through, I don't think. I think the area down on Lordship Boulevard that goes towards St. Michael's Cemetery is much worse.
Okay, and so where are the people going to park while you're doing this construction?
So the gravel parking lot really isn't going to change. We're just going to delineate it, stripe it basically on the gravel. So the construction is really happening here behind the building. There's a billboard there right now, and we're going to be building underneath the billboard, so it shouldn't impact the existing parking. Yeah, we're adding 26 spots, but because this area is just like a big gravel area, we're just going to organize it and say, we're adding 26 spots because we're organizing it in a way that makes it more efficient and we can get 26 spots. Correct.
Okay, so my question is with the quote-unquote pond that's next to Lordship Boulevard, which again, you mainly have frag in there, the Phragmites.
Yeah.
Has there been any problems so far where you're planning to drain the water first and then going into the pond?
So we're going into essentially here into the wetland area that's over here that then connects to the pond. So we don't foresee any issue with that really. I mean, so the existing, I talked to the existing owner about has he had any water in the building or anything like that, and he really hasn't said he has. And if he did, he wouldn't want to stay here. But so he hasn't had any issues like that. So we were confident with just putting a surface discharge, basically, instead of trying to go underground and then do like an outfall. So because we know that this area doesn't flood to the surface, we're going to do like a little, basically an infiltration swale. It's kind of made of stone, and then that water is just going to overflow the top of it into the wetland.
Okay, so are you going to try to do any kind of like remediation with the Phragmites, or you're just going to leave it as is?
I mean, right now we're not proposing any of that, but we're definitely open to it if we have to. You know, we're trying not to impact the wetland at all, but
Okay.
the commission feels it needs to happen. Then.
And there's been, again, no issues with blockage in the initial wetlands area there over the years?
No, like I said, I think when we spoke to him, he said that there's flooding down here on the road, and that this thing the water's kind of stagnant sometimes, but once it rains, it flushes out to Lordship Boulevard to some culvert out there. I think the state has some work to do out there, maybe to kind of clean some things up, but I don't know if it's something that we can do.
Hi, Karen, nice to meet you.
All right,
Yep.
thank you.
Have an Irish soda bread?
Just for clarity on the parking lot, it's going to be, you're redesigning it, you're not adding more spaces. Kind of re-engineering where the lines are going to be.
No, right now, if you go out there right now, there's just a big.
Yeah, I'm familiar with,
Yeah, there's a big tractor trailers turn around in it and stuff.
you're just going to clean it up, the area will be the same size.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're not raising the grade of the parking lot at all?
No, really, we just want to put a warehouse building on the back. Yeah. Correct, on the perimeter. Just to kind of put some street trees, get some shade. Right now, it's just like brush and grass. Correct. Yep. For the trees? Yeah, they're right here on SP5. We have 4 red maples, 5 pin oaks, 3 Korean dogwoods, 14 rhododendrons, and then 4 white azaleas. So the shrubs are definitely water hungry, I think. Right?
The construction of the new building is on a slab then, right?
Yeah, it's going to be a slab on the grade.
There's no basement, nothing.
In fact,
It's commercial.
it's going to be a raised slab.
Okay.
Yeah.
Irish, no Italian.
It's going to be above grade.
Until Ancestry.com.
And the existing building is on similar, right? There's no
No,
low
yeah,
grade
no.
space,
No.
right?
In fact, if you go to the building, it's kind of like, it has like loading docks here, and it's about it's 2 or 3 feet above grade.
Except I don't like Irish soda.
I just don't like Carol Tree's racist.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
I, we have, certificates already drawn.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
99
It's so cute. It's so cute.
Any thoughts? What do people?
Rules are very clear, like you cannot bring it from the store. Like I brought an Irish soda bread from Rosa this morning. I could enter that, but I won't. Because it looks too perfect.
Right, the displacement.
Do you want me to answer that?
Sure.
Yeah, so like I said in the existing condition, all the way up to the 50-year storm, we're actually reducing the amount of water that goes to the pond. And how we're doing that is we over-designed the amount of storage that we're putting underground. So we're not just collecting what that new addition is going to introduce to to the system, we're actually going to collect the roof runoff from the existing building, and then we're going to store that in about 400 lineal feet of these little 2x4 tanks underground. And so instead of that water going to the pond, we're going to have about 4,000 cubic feet of water that's going to be held underneath the ground behind the building. So that's what we're pulling away from that pond and stuff. Yeah, so we're accounting for it up to the 6.5 inch rainstorm. So that's like a hurricane. And that's the 50-year storm. That there's a what is it, a 5% chance every year for it to happen.
That was 5 years ago.
What's that?
That was 5 years ago. Now it's
Right.
probably a lot higher.
Well, yeah, so that's why we're designing everything to a little bit higher storm. We're in Stratford, normally we would design to the 25-year storm. Here we're designing it to the 50. So like I said, I think what you have to do is have to visualize that right here, right? We created a 2-foot deep pond, but you're just not going to be able to see it. It's going to be underground. And so there's going to be 2 foot of water being collected in this large area here.
I think that it's also important to note that currently there is no stormwater infrastructure. Right. Everything is discharging directly to the pond. And Joe just joined us this month as his first meeting, so he didn't get all the information that you provided before.
I understand.
So this will be providing some water quality volume storage and then water quality improvement, whereas right now it's just running right off into that wetland.
Yep, so we're basically creating another pond, and we're just holding the water from the roof in that pond. So if you can visualize how much water that would be, 2 feet by 4 by 400, that's what's not being discharged now into the pond or the wetlands nearby.
And if I understand correctly, there's a filtration system with that as well.
Correct.
So what does run over leaves a lot of the silt and the debris behind.
Right, that'll all get picked up. It's part of the treatment train. Infiltration, because it's going through the soil, will actually treat that. Right, it's almost like when you have a septic system. It's putting water into the ground, and the way it treats that water is by adding oxygen to it and filtering it through the sand. So the intent of this is to be open bottom, so the majority of it will soak into the ground because this is a very sandy area. But if it was to fill up, right, and the sand in the water isn't being absorbed into the sand fast enough, it then goes into another little swale here, which then overflows into the wetland. Okay, but with the way the material is out here, and with I do large developments all the way down Lordship Boulevard. You're going to see the next one coming up. We never see, the sand percolates so fast that we never see overflows. Yeah. Like I said, there's a concrete culvert that runs parallel. So when they widened Lordship Boulevard, right, there used to be a open ditch on the north side of Lordship Boulevard that ran all the way to the airport. So when the state widened it to 4 or 5 lanes, they put a concrete culvert or chamber, right? I could probably if I was like this, I'd be standing in it. It's about that wide, and that runs now parallel to Lordship Boulevard, and then opens up somewhere around FedEx, where FedEx is. It goes up. It opens up to the open air, and then that runs into the marsh. So, again, that's all things that the state did a long time ago, and I think I can't be positive, but I think this was a staging area for the state at one time, and they mined out some material, and they left the pond there. So, okay. All right.
I don't know if it's a question, but some of that area is affected by the tide cycle too, though, right? It's not strictly,
So the wetland scientists looked at the pond, and it's not brackish, so there's no salt.
there's no, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you then.
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions? Do we feel comfortable, we want to act on this, or do you want to table it for more discussion? Any other questions? And we want to make a motion,
I feel comfortable with it. I'll make a motion
motion to accept?
to accept it, yes.
We've already accepted it, so we need
Yeah.
to approve.
Motion to approve, seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you very much. Have a great
Thank you.
night.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Manny, are these the same plans or the other alterations? Okay.
Aaron?
But they're the same ones that were submitted last time.
So we're keeping you busy tonight? So, we're ready to hear any information around the permit modification request for construction of the 169,000 square foot warehouse.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Madam Secretary, Kelly, Conservation Superintendent. I'm here before you this evening to ask for a permit modification to permit the construction of approximately 169,000 square foot building with 197 parking spaces. This property, these two properties, 775 Lordship Boulevard and 975 Lordship Boulevard, were the subject of a permit modification request last year. We came in with an approved 137,000 square foot building with support parking. We asked you all to modify that to a 64,000 square foot building and additional parking. Unfortunately, the approval was granted, and the tenant decided not to go forward with the project. It's a very small building on a 12-acre parcel. It was very specific for what they do, so there was no reason to continue with that project. This project is more of a multi-tenant building, very similar to the properties you'll see at the end of Long Beach Boulevard, where you have a variety of tenants there. 24-foot clear facility for distribution type uses. The property was originally 42 acres. It was subdivided into 3 lots. The first lot was 28 acres and was developed for FedEx. That's a 225,000 square foot facility. We're here tonight to request 169,000 square feet. And the original approvals, when you go back to the first time we came to this commission, we were approved for a single 530,000 square foot building and approximately 29 acres of impervious area. Tonight's plan will not get close to that total, 530,000 feet. It's 225,000 plus 170, so it's reduced, as well as the fact that the impervious area, when you total up what's existing and what this proposed project will construct, will be about 2.85 acres less than was previously approved for impervious area. And quite frankly, the last application had small building and max parking. We're basically trading rooftop for asphalt. We're not going out into different areas of the site. We've pretty well defined the areas of development. We've already put in most of the infrastructure, stormwater management, when the original FedEx property was constructed. And that's why the permit was issued for the whole 42-acre site. We took the whole site, we came in, we proposed the maximum development. That deal didn't happen, and we've been reducing it every time we've come before you. I'm happy to answer questions.
It is true.
No, it's not
Yes,
true.
it is. I said, come on up, right?
So to many of us, we have seen this before, and but for those who are new, can you kind of go through some of the specifics in terms of runoff and any specific questions folks have on this?
I remember going to those meetings. Yep. You were probably.
Take
I
it
was.
slow.
And then I remember everybody used to come back to.
Yeah, distribution warehouse. I
drinking
mean, potentially 30-foot clear heights for storage.
His softball drinking league. Yeah, that's
Well,
really
the drainage to the site
Oh, there he is. I'm gonna shift. Whoop, hold on.
is
That's
very
not
well
gonna work.
designed. The Connecticut DEP approved it the first time we showed it to them. You have a 42-acre site, Lordship Boulevard.
That's correct.
You have a large retention pond in the back with over 1,000 linear feet of a spillway. Ultimately, all the water from the site drains there. There's no single discharge with scour that's going to be increased whatsoever. This is a level spreader.
Yes, ma'am.
And you'll see that the back of the site is connected to the front of the site through infiltration
That's my name.
ditches along the perimeter.
Oh, my.
There's also a retention pond constructed in the front. Right now, there's nothing, there's no water in it. There's no impervious area to send any water to it, but it's all set to receive it. Once the area in front of the retention pond is constructed, that runoff will flow to that pond. Some of the runoff will go back to an existing retention infiltration ditch. And then when you get to the smaller 775 Lordship Boulevard site, we're going to continue the development with additional infiltration trenches, as shown in red here. So effectively, everything goes right here and back into the marsh. Behind this retention pond is land owned by the United States Fish and Wildlife Service. That site is a 22-acre wetland restoration site, which we did in order to get permits from the Connecticut DEP and Army Corps of Engineers to develop this site, in addition to which the eastern boundary of this entire site has approximately a 5.5-acre wetland restoration site, which we also had constructed as part of the original permits from the DEP and the Corps.
And any planting diagrams with this?
We've submitted landscape plans. I mean, the frontage is already developed with pin oaks. That was part of the subdivision approval. There's a more detailed plan, which I know we have a detailed plan in with zoning. You all should have a copy.
What kind of, what are they going to store in this? It's not a chemical storage, is it?
Well, the zoning will determine that. There's
Okay,
only about 7 allowable uses
Yes.
on a coastal industrial site.
Right.
So, I mean, FedEx is here. They
Yeah.
have boxes with all
Yeah.
sorts of things in it. I mean, if anybody's doing anything with chemicals, they would have to find a different site.
You got it.
This
All right.
site is very limited
Yes.
in the types of uses that are allowed. I mean, it's right next door to Bridgeport Fittings and all the existing heavy industrial zone. And they all drain to the same location.
Right.
But there'd be no approvals
Right.
for anything of that sort.
Right, this shouldn't be, okay.
And the vehicle access is from Lordship Boulevard across from Wood End Road then?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's a extremely wide entrance. It had to get a special approval, and it's functioning since the FedEx property was constructed.
Right, and there's nothing on the Lordship Boulevard after you make the right into Sierra. Right?
That's correct. Single entrance to all 42 acres. Utilities are underground as well.
Any other questions?
Question about the, so this is a FedEx facility. Is there a fleet stored here, fleet of vehicles?
Well, no, FedEx is the existing facility.
And the new building is where?
The new building is in the front
Oh, I
here.
understand.
I mean, FedEx just leased the old mobile chemical site, so I don't think they need any more, but who knows? And they're down the street on the end of Long Beach Boulevard as well in another 70,000 feet.
We get our deliveries in 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Any other?
Just, again, I know you said this, but fundamentally, you're saying earlier plans were approved for a larger proposal?
Yes.
And this is a reduced impact, reduced.
So initially,
usage.
it was a big 530,000 square foot single building. Then we came back in for a FedEx facility only. Then we came in for 137,000, changed it to 64, and we're here for 170. Bill McCann gets bored when I talk about it because he's like developed the site already. I mean, how many approvals do you expect to get from us?
It seems like you've done a lot of work in the space, and others have beaten you up enough beforehand.
You can see the scars. They've healed.
Motion to close discussion?
A motion?
Motion to approve?
Yes. Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Let's move. Any more than they started with, yeah.
Sorry. Any new business? Staff report?
Sure. So the Conservation Commission is still working on the native planting guide. I did send you, Dr. Chess, a very rough draft that our intern has started to put together. So if you have any comments, I can send that to the rest of this commission as well, if you'd all like to have some input at this stage. It is a lot of moving parts getting a native planting guide together because there's obviously many native species, and trying to determine what is commercially available to most developers it's been a little bit challenging. So I'll email that all to the rest of you folks as well.
And the idea is that when folks come in, we'll have guidelines that we can apply. We maybe even be able to, make them more specific that this type of property, this is what tends to work, and then in this something else works here. But then rather than them coming forward with a plan and us saying, hey, what does that mean? Is there a better way to do it? We'll have a point of view. So that's what we're trying to get at.
All right, so I'll email you what we have so far, and you guys can comment as you like. Still have quite a few performance bonds out there. No movement on any of them, except for one with Joe Owen that I'm working on with him. And we're almost ready to get that to you folks. Still have the virtual training available. I don't know if you guys are interested. I think you all have the link at this point. Questions? Oh, you did? I think it's really helpful. It goes into a lot of detail. Yeah. Yeah, even...
This year will be 96 years. Very proud of it.
Now that the virtual one's easy out, I think. Were you able to log into it? Did you try
Ben had to leave. I think they went to NYC.
Yes, I know that. And then onto the administrative report, I've issued 2 permits since we last met, one for some tree removals within the upland review area of inland wetlands, and one for a residential addition within the upland review area of Brewster. That's all.
I don't know what that's for. I'm waiting for Mike Downs to get here. I don't know if he has like some sort of a proclamation that he wants to put up there.
Maybe anything that folks would like to address?
I know that Mike did a proclamation. I don't
We're
know
really pleased to have
where it is, if he
the
wants to be
folks
there.
on the committee. And
I'm kind of waiting on him.
we try to make a difference here, so thank you.
Those aren't yours?
Yeah, but those are for driving.
Okay.
So all I'm
Okay.
gonna do is introduce.
Thank you.
Yes, it is.